Welcome to Coffee with Bible and Pop Culture. There is a space for everyone at this table. We are here to ask hard questions, to have honest conversations, and to journey together. We're here to talk about the things that matter most to us and to remind you that you're not alone. Our heart behind this time is to ask hard questions and to really dialogue about what we're going through. Let's engage, explore, and enjoy. Welcome to Coffee with Bible and Pop Culture, our first one of 2021. Today, we are talking with founder, CEO, and curator of Bible and Pop Culture, Mia Burke. Mia, thank you so much for bearing through this morning and for being here. And we're in for a treat. You guys are going to be able to hear from Mia really the who behind the what of Bible and pop culture. So I'm so excited to get into our conversation today.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
So we're going to dive in. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is I've heard you mention in conversations and different podcasts that you've done a certain underlying concern that you had about the relationship between the church and culture and how it was shifting away from genuine conversation. Mm-hmm. So can we take a quick deep dive into what that concern was and how it's played out into the work of Bible and Pop?
Sure. I became a Christian kind of midlife, 19, 20 years old. And I remember just as a new Christian, I have a lot of questions. I always have a lot of questions. And I studied the Bible and I found that the life that I had been living was very incongruent with our faith. Mm-hmm. So I went to other people to just kind of look for answers. And I just felt like I got either pat answers or just super superficial answers, or I just didn't understand them. I didn't understand what grace meant. I didn't understand what mercy was, and I didn't understand those kind of things. And no one just could really get in there with me. And my grandfather calls me the waterboarder because I ask a lot of questions, and I'm very curious as a person. So I just want to understand how it works. What is this faith thing? What is all this? And I just don't accept things given face value. So thankfully, being a tenacious person, I would just keep asking. And I found some people who were willing to let me ask my questions and love me anyway, no matter how goofy or random or why are you asking that? Why do you care? So I was blessed to find safe spaces just to be ignorant, where I could have mature believers kind of walk me through my wrong assumptions or my flawed perceptions, or just that place to work out my faith without having to be perfect. In many conversations with students and friends and people I've met all over the world, that's been their experience as well. It hasn't been positive. And from that, I've seen kind of two polar divides. I've seen, a Christianity that's completely worldly. It doesn't have anything to offer different than the world. It's kind of these, pat answers, just doesn't do anything for your soul and radically change you. But I've seen the opposite, where it's become very dangerous to question things, that there's only one answer. It's more important to have numbers than it is to have encounters with Jesus and to change your reality. Mm-hmm. So my heart hurts for both extremes. And so Bible and pop culture is kind of my small attempt to create that safe space in our world to ask your questions, to kind of work out your beliefs, to communicate, and it not be about winning, but understanding. My hope is to build a community of people that can lovingly talk about their perspectives. They can build how they're seeing the world on, the truth of God, in order to love themselves, to love each other, and to get to know Jesus more. So as for the culture, I see communication has become about winning, and people talk at each other and not to each other. And I don't know if it's a change in me as we're getting older or a change in our world, but I feel this communication is just missing out on great conversation, chances to learn, opportunities to see things from another perspective, which again leads toward empathy. So that's kind of the heart behind, how it started, and kind of where we're trying to go.
Yeah. And I love that every time we get together for any kind of brainstorming or meeting or team, it's always okay, how can we have a conversation about this? And how can we
Yeah.
continue a conversation? Or where is the safe space for these ideas to be explored even further? So, yeah.
Mhm.
And our
Yeah.
generation is thirsty for that. We need that. I
Yeah.
think, and we just had a
Yeah.
conversation before this going live about um, how our generation is desires authentic relationships and what's real. And I love that your heart is to cultivate that in
Yeah.
in honest ways and safe spaces. So good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're diving into Bible and pop culture. What does it mean to live within popular culture? Because there's no getting out of it. And while being a disciple of Christ.
Well, for me, it just means being in the world, but not of it. Again, there's those polar extremes where you have Christians who have completely removed themselves from the culture and they don't understand it and it doesn't understand them. They're speaking another language. There's just no connection. Things have become very black and white, secular, sacred. Um, and I don't know that that's the most helpful way. Again, it calls us to be in it, but not of it. And then I see the other extreme again, the Christians who are so worldly, who are so in it that there's no difference and they can't offer an answer and they can't give hope and they can't like really communicate the depth of the experience of having that radical encounter with Jesus that just rocks your world in a good way.
Yeah.
It calls you away from some things and it introduces you to new things. It's giving as opposed to, giving up. And, people think Christianity is about walking away from everything, but it's not. But anyway, so I feel like to be a Christian in culture, it's that our faith is kind of upside down from what the world says, and it's like, how do you explore that to be in it? I mean, he doesn't expect us to go be these monks in the desert, who eat locusts and wear camel hair. That's not helpful to him. But it's like, how do we interact with these things to find a balance of seeing God at work in everything, even when it doesn't look like what we want it to look like. So I find that it's about a balance of finding out God of things and doing our best with it. So a great example of that is kind of our culture's preoccupation with self. I don't think God expects us to hate ourselves and to, completely like there is no self. I don't think that's real. That's not of it because, in the word it says, love your neighbor as yourself. So obviously there's some self-love involved in that. But with our faith, how can we work to become selfless, where the self isn't the total preoccupation? We love ourselves, we care for ourselves, we do these things, but share that with others and then do the same thing. How can we love and care for your soul as well as my soul? So that's kind of how, at least how I've found balance in
Yeah.
being a Christian in pop culture.
Yeah. I love that. It's about what we can be within the community that we're a part of, and you can't,
Mm-hmm.
give out of nothing, right? So you have to figure out
Mm-hmm.
what it is too.
Yes, exactly.
Who you are, and in the same space share that with other people. Yeah, it's so good. Okay,
Yeah.
so tell us the backstory of you, like, and why your journey has brought you to this moment with this organization, Bible and Pop Culture, in this specific time. What does it look like to be brought into the fullness of what God has for you and for us as a generation that's being raised up in this time of history?
Yeah. Um, Well, I don't know. I'm kind of a mess. No, but it's a good thing. I'm an Enneagram type 1. So it's all, my whole life's been about perfection and order and organizing the chaos and stuff. I'm from a really small town in coastal Mississippi, and I grew up all over the United States, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, California, Texas. I'm an avid reader. And so when I married my husband, I went into uh, an undergraduate in English, and then I went to a master's in communication, specifically in script and screenwriting. So I wanted to be a writer. But then when we moved to Hawaii, I was given an opportunity to teach, because writers, the money's not pouring in and scripts are a little more difficult to get out there than you think they are. So I started teaching. I taught faith and film and loved it. And then God just opened the door to teach Bible and pop culture and just totally kind of was this intersection of all these strange things that I had done throughout my life, of being an avid movie watcher, being an avid reader, being an analytical academic type person, all these just strange life experiences. And then I had an interesting time where I gotten sick, and for about 6 months was just not able to work. I just really had to take care of myself, and just really seeking God, like, what do you want me to do with my life? I'm in my mid 40s now. What does all this mean? What is the point? That whole existential crisis kind of thing going on. And then I wrote a piece, and I just kept hearing this, well, could you do what you used to ask your students to do? I would have them do a Picha Kucha presentation, and then they would break apart an artifact and look at it philosophically, look at it aesthetically, and then look at it spiritually. And so I wrote something, and I just threw it out there on Facebook, and I had a ton of old students contact me and say, you need to do something with this. This is so much fun to be part of this. So I just kind of started, and then, just people just kind of came in. A creative team developed, and then a board developed, and then it just became this big thing. And then God just really gave me a vision, with the communication piece, and just worrying, or being concerned with where I see communication going and what can I do to change that. And then looking at the spiritual piece, we have 2 generations coming up behind me that are facing some amazing challenges. There are just some huge issues that need to be solved. And how can we be part of equipping them to tackle what they're going to have to deal with in their lifetime? And then just the other part of it, the creative part of me, who just wants an outlet of expression, because I love people, I love art, I want to talk about it. So it's just this really interesting intersection of just really strange things in my life that I never understood why I did these things or why I had these experiences. It's all meeting and became this thing. So
yes, I love that. Oh, and you can see it in all the different ways that Bible and pop culture interacts and has spaces for people to express themselves in all mediums and all art forms and ways of communication. So I love that. You've brought people into your journey, and you've done it so well. It's been so good.
Oh, thank you. It's been fun. It's been difficult at times, but clarity of vision. What are we doing? Why are we doing this? Is it even worth doing? But I think it is, and I'm just really excited about where we're going.
Okay, tell us about this idea that I've heard you talk about before. Tell us about the 500-year church rummage sale.
Yeah, so a mentor of mine in Hawaii, she introduced me to an author named Phyllis Tickle, and she has this theory, and she's gone through, the 2,000 plus years of church history, and she notices like every 500 years, there's this crisis that forces the church to have to address where it is, what it's doing, why is it doing that, and then a new iteration comes out of it. I mean, our core beliefs don't change. Jesus is still the only Son of God, and those core Nicene Creed type things don't change, but just the iteration. Like, for example, she says there's the Reformation in the 16th century, the Schism in the 11th century, Gregory the Great, monasticism in the 6th century, and then the Great Transformation, which happened during the time of Jesus. So she says that we're hitting that great emergence, is what she calls it. Now, I don't agree with her necessarily about her conclusions, or, so I'm not advocating that, she's this prophetic voice in the history of the church right now, but I just found it super interesting, and it was speaking to something that I was already seeing within myself of, needing more connection with Jesus and less programming, needing, intimacy, needing to like really explore the ins and outs of the daily living the way of Jesus, living that selfless life, balancing with self. So I think she's on to something. Don't know if she has her conclusions completely, right, but it just really spoke to me.
Yeah. So with that, tell us about what we've seen even in just this last year with the crossing generation conversations and crossing interracial denominational collaborations with Bible and pop culture. It's been amazing to see what has happened in 2021, especially as we are figuring out what direction we take in sorry, in 2020, and then we figure out what direction we're taking in 2021. So yeah, can you tell us about what we've seen over the last year?
Yeah, I've always had a heart for inclusion. So that was super important to me to create a place where we just have as many voices as possible. Again, I'm super curious as a person, so I really felt like I wanted to hear where you're coming from your cultural context, from your generational context, from your, just what you're into, what speaks to you, how are you seeing God work in this? So my hope was to give a chance for us to all see things from new perspectives. And then my prayer is that, using this safe construct of a pop culture artifact, a song, a movie, whatever, something going on in the culture, how did we come to our answers? How did we arrive at this as what is true or right? Why? And then does another perspective enlarge our understanding, or does it confirm what we already believe?
Yeah.
And then can we start to see the commonalities instead of the differences? And I think where a lot of that came from for me was when I was in undergrad, I took an African American women's lit class and I loved it. It was so heartbreaking, it was painful, and it really made me wrestle with some things from Toni Morrison, from Nora Zeal Thurston, from the slave narratives, and just really put my mind in another place to understand somebody else's experience. And I remember talking to the professor after class, and I said, what is it going to take for us to come together? What is it going to take for us to have the empathy and, just understand another's journey? And she said, when we get visited by aliens. And I was like, what does that mean? And kind of walked away from the conversation like, what does that mean? And I realized, I think what she means is that when there is another other, we'll come together because we'll be humans. And I'm not okay with that. I'm just not okay with that. And so I kind of feel like in the back of my mind, subconsciously, God just used that to kind of dedicate my life to say, can we build a bridge? Can we find something or someone different from me? But instead of looking at why we're different, can we find something in common, just something in our humanity to find a reason to love each other or appreciate it? I don't have to like it or accept it, but I can appreciate it and love instead of hate. So I think that's kind of where that comes from. So that's what we're really hoping to develop in the community that we're working on, is just what can we find in common? And instead of latching on to that trolling of, you don't believe what I believe, yes, there are some things that are close-handed truth, but there are so many things that are open-handed and just, based on our experience or our interpretation. And can we at least try on those shoes and see, I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to walk away believing the same as you, but at least I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. And that actually flows right into another question. It's not in order of what we're talking about, but I love that I've heard you say over and over again, in a heart behind Bible and pop culture is to learn how to disagree well. And holding space within ourselves to commit to learn and find commonality, even if we don't agree. So I know you just talked about that, but is there anything else you could say to, like, what does it look like to disagree well and to find that commonality?
Is that it's not about winning. I watch a lot of political conversations on Facebook, and I'm like, did anybody win? Did anybody convince somebody else of something differently? Was name calling, finger wagging, were those things helpful? No. Can we instead, take the emotion out of it, take the sidedness out of it, and can we just look at the topic itself? Can we look at, is this for the good of the people, if we were talking about politics, instead of the other part? Because I have found people are actually saying the same thing. They're all saying everybody wants peace, everybody wants love, everybody wants, now other things come into play that derail those things, like power and injustice and things like that. But can we just talk about the issue? And so I feel like that's how you disagree well, is you're like, what is the point of this conversation? It's for the good of the whole, right? It's for the, the glory of God. It's for, these things. So how do we approach that, keeping that goal in mind, and not feeling afraid of, just because I've heard another perspective doesn't mean it's going to wreck my beliefs or wreck, my identity to hear it. I don't have to agree with it. And a really great example of that that's happened on Bible and Pop Culture is we had in, I believe, the February of 2020 issue of a video game, and an article on video games. And there was a boomer who wrote to the millennial who wrote the article and said, help me understand this. I just don't see it that way. And they had a conversation in the comment section about, well, here's kind of how God has spoken to me through video games. Here's how I've been able to connect with my nephew. And she's like, I still don't necessarily agree with you, but I now get your perspective and I can appreciate that. And I'm like, yes, that is exactly what we're trying to do. Is, she didn't change, but she just had a little more understanding. And I think because of that, a little more empathy for her grandchildren that are very invested in video games, and just being from another generation that just wasn't, that wasn't a thing for them. So
I
they
love that.
disagreed, and it was good.
Yeah. Okay, so can we talk about if there's anybody watching this or listening and they're ready to walk away, or they've already started their journey away from the church? What would you say to them?
I think my first question would be, are you walking away from burdensome man-made rules and understandings of Jesus, or are you walking away from God? Are you walking away from Jesus? Recently, I've been looking into the people that Jesus was angry with, or the people that he was very critical of or disdainful of in the Bible or in the Gospels. And it was the religious people. It was the burdens, the barriers that they were placing in front of others who needed connection with Jesus and needed connection with God. And life is hard. I mean, I'm going through a couple of things in my life right now, and it is very painful and very disorienting, and a lot of processing of the past in order to go into the future. And if I didn't have that connection to Jesus and knowing that he is for me, he's interceding for me, he loves me, he's for my good, I think I would be wrecked right now, to be honest. But, and there's so many people in that place. And he is, he wants relationship with us. He wants to walk with us. He wants to be there. And I would just encourage you to just kind of first ask that question. And then second, keep searching. Keep searching. There are so many big C church places that are doing it right, and people who are doing it right, understanding that it's about loving God, loving our neighbor, and loving ourselves. Keep searching. You're going to find those people who get it and who are doing it in a loving, kind way, but truthful way. And they're connected to Jesus, and they're going to reach out and love you too. So I think that would be my answer.
And, as we look into 2021 and our kind of direction for Bible pop culture and what we're looking for in terms of building community, it would be a safe place for someone who's struggling with those things, right? Mm-hmm. Who is ready to walk away, or is saying, I'm already done. Like, I've been there, I've done that, I've seen this, I've experienced that, and it's not where I want to be. And we want to say there's a world, out there that we can invite you into relationship, and we can relate to you on all these different levels, because this is what we're passionate about. All these different artifacts, all these different things that we get to interact with in popular culture all the time. And like, this is a safe space to keep searching, like you said. Mm-hmm. And I know that our heart is to, especially in this year, in 2021, is to dig deeper into community and like what that looks like against the backdrop backdrop of Bible and pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am excited about the goals that we're having and setting about how do we have genuine conversations, and like instead of just talking at people, like you said, like how do we talk with you, like this is a safe space, and how do we create that for others. So we're really looking forward to diving into that, especially in the months ahead, and creating spaces for people to ask questions and have conversations, and not ever feel like any of their thoughts or ideas are too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that and looking forward to that for 2021. Yeah. So we've been through a year and a little bit of Bible and pop culture, and we've discovered a lot about ourselves in the process, and the whole team, and what things engage and what things don't. And who would you say that your biggest cheerleader has been, like through this whole process? You had a dream, you wrote, your first Facebook post, you had a bunch of people like saying, do this, and you have walked through all the things that it takes to, from the business side to, the invitations. Oh my gosh, it's just amazing what you've done. So who would you say has like cheered you on this year?
I would say it's been a community of people. I mean, my husband has been amazing to support me in it, from not working so that I can focus on this, to helping finance it, to editing podcasts, to helping. My daughter has been amazing. She has jumped in. My son has jumped in, and in his own academic, ethereal way, because he's a big thinker, helping me write a Bible study. The creative team has been amazingly helpful. All of you guys who have taken on things that I just couldn't do by myself because you caught the vision. The board has been amazing. I'm not a business person at all. So to become a nonprofit was a huge hurdle to jump. And then just helping us become sustainable so that we can do what we're called to do. And then I have an amazing tribe of girlfriends who have been praying for me, who have been pushing me, who have been challenging me, who have not let me get away with, my own goofy pity parties or, whatever I came along to, getting frustrated with things. Me going, God called you to this, and reminding me of the mission has been super helpful. So I feel like it's a community of cheerleaders that I've had. There have been some low lows, a lot of soul searching, a lot of motive searching, a lot of like, God, am I hearing you? But there have been some high highs too, when you hear of people saying, I didn't know that Christianity could be this way. I didn't know, tell me a little bit more, or I'm open at least to hearing your perspective where they might not have been before. So we've heard stories of that too. So it's been I feel like the first year was figuring out who we are, what are we doing, and why are we doing it. And I feel like we've got that down. Now this next year is, how can we serve our community? How can we serve, just people where they are, and just connecting them to themselves again, to us and to each other, and to God ultimately. So.
Yeah. There's so much that we could talk about. We could just talk forever about the things that we're hoping for, and all the stories, month after month, of how people experienced in a new way what the Bible says. And so really, we were going to be live. This isn't live right now, but if you're watching it either on YouTube or on Facebook, we want to end our time together by asking anyone who is watching or listening, what conversations do you wish you could be having but don't have a safe space to do so? We want to hear from you. We really do. We want to continue conversations with you. So please send us a message in whatever way that is easiest for you, a direct message on Facebook, or comment comment under the video, or on YouTube, or send us an email through our website, bibleandpopculture.com. And we're really looking forward in 2021 to building community in a deep and lasting and impactful way, for anybody who wants to join, a safe space to have conversations about the things that we love, and the things that we're all experiencing, and the things that we question and what we're afraid of, and all the things. So yeah, let us know what conversations you wish you could be having. And Mia, thank you so much for one, spending time today to share with us, to walking through all the technical difficulties from this morning. And of course, last but not least, being you and continuing to press on and lead us and continue your dream and your vision. And we're excited to see what 2021 has in store.
Yes, me too. Me too. And I just also want to invite Sabbath to kind of talk a little bit about what does that mean? What is community going to look like for Bible and Pop in 2021? Sabbath is our community director of community. And so Sabbath, can we talk a little bit real quick before we go? What are some of the things that we're going to try in 2021?
Yeah, so we're hoping to create some spaces where people can meet together online. We're trying to figure out what the best platforms to use for that is, but we want to have a place where we can say, hey, we're going to talk about this. Do you want to join us? And so, and we're going to ask questions that, again, we might not feel like we could ask anywhere else. But we know what we believe. We know what we're looking for in a conversation, and we're not looking for necessarily the right answer or a problem to be solved, but we're just looking for a community to be built. So we're going to start creating places to interact. Of course, you know, we're in a time all over the world that we can't just get together, but thankfully we have technology that can bring us all together in the same space, like face to face, and say, let's talk about this. So we're really looking forward to that. And we're also going to just launch out into communities all over the world, hopefully through our awareness campaign. And so anybody who is interested in helping out with that, that'll be coming up very soon. And you can hear, we'll send out some invitations for that as well. So just a chance to get the word out and, you know, share how Bible and pop culture has impacted you. And then I'm excited to see the community that forms around that, kind of a big voice for the things that we're hoping for 2021. Yeah, and then just more places to continue conversations. So podcasts, and we'll continue some like expert interview type of things, you know, coffee with Bible and pop culture. And the hope is to take that to the next level and really dialogue in real time about the topics that are being brought up. So.
And I was also excited about some of the things that we had talked about, like roundtable discussions where it's an open invitation to actually talk. Some of the classes we were thinking about offering, we were thinking about doing some Bible studies together to kind of dig deeper on some things. And then some of the other ideas that we had were like community events that you can host and as a group give feedback and give interaction. So we have a lot of exciting things we're going to try this year. We're totally open to whatever this looks like and where it goes, and how you want to express yourself as a community. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah. Yes, we are. So thank you again to everybody who's watching and listening. Thank you, Mia. We will catch you guys very soon. And we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye. God bless.